Of course, as I said, we still see these are the two main reasons, 90% of issues, and we're still seeing 3 to 4 pharmacies every couple of months hit by some form of incident, and overwhelmingly 90% of the time it's either a result of a phishing email or some sort of access via remote access software. And an RDP or RDC, tremendously valuable. COVID, people working from home, being able to log into your computers remotely, it's an amazing tool. Remote Desktop Protocol, which is an inbuilt system within most operating systems, Microsoft operating systems, is inherently vulnerable. It is a system where we have instances where pharmacies have set it up, and literally within hours of having done so, because there are systems that scan the internet looking for the vulnerability, we've had a hacker in a pharmacy with a Russian IP address within hours of someone setting up an RDP connection into their store. So my recommendation is don't do it. If you must use or access remotely your pharmacy software, pharmacy systems, use a trusted person, a trusted organisation. Log Me In, ConnectWise is a company we use, they have a protocol control. Where are these companies based? Do you trust them? Do they have multi-factor authentication? Do they enforce complex passwords? Absolutely. Do not just use an open remote access tool or RDP to access your pharmacy. If you're doing it, turn it off. It's only a matter of time before they're going to get access to it. If you want to start talking about training your staff, this is what we see. How to spot a phishing email. You need to check if the sender is real. Does the name match the from field in the bracket? So when you receive the email, they're able to put the name that appears in the from field, and they can make that anything they want. But the email behind it is often still junk email or it's gibberish. So double check to see that what's in the brackets of the email matches what is the actual sender and is actually from the person that you're expecting it to be. Is there an email greeting and a footer there? And again, most emails, if legitimate, will be addressed to you by name. And in the footer, they'll have information such as their physical address or an unsubscribe button, a phone number to contact. Importantly, hover your mouse over the link. It's a really simple one to do. Most of those links will be previewed on the bottom of the screen, and you'll identify whether that's a legitimate link to navigate to or whether it's just gibberish and it's taking you somewhere else. But most of all, and again, look beyond the email. And this is, as I mentioned before, with a business email compromise. You need to look and check that the sender is actually who they're purporting to be. Fake emails are getting harder to spot, and you need to be suspicious of all information requests. So call the person, ask them, is this real? Did you actually send this to me? And if in doubt, delete it. If it's important, I'm sure I'll send it again. And as I mentioned, 90% of attacks, phishing emails and RDP connections, if you don't click on those links and fall victim to a phishing email and you don't use an insecure RDP connection, then you're in a much better position than you would otherwise be. In summary, the things to focus on are your people, your process and your technology. You need to invest in your people. Security awareness training is absolutely essential. You need to know what to do in the event of a cyber attack, who to call, who to speak to, what are the steps that you put in place. A really simple one is to simply unplug the machine. If you think you've clicked on a link and you shouldn't have, and you think, oh, what have I done? Unplug the blue cable. Simple thing you can do. If you can't reach the blue cable, turn the machine off. Really simple things, because it takes a couple of minutes, it takes a while for that system, and most of the time it's just a malicious software and you just stop that from loading in the first instance. So if you act quickly enough, even if you've made a mistake, even if it's an hour later, that's still the first machine. They need to laterally spread across the network. Disconnect that particular machine from the network. And for that reason, it's really important to ensure that the data that you have in your pharmacy, the machine that houses your dispense database, the machine that houses your POS data, machines that hold any sort of personal or sensitive information, is not the machine that you surf the internet with. It's not the machine that you check your emails with. Ensure that the database is on a separate machine somewhere in the pharmacy. Ideally, it's on a server that is well protected. If you're a small pharmacy, a dedicated PC is good enough. But it's a machine that no one accesses for day-to-day operations. Its job is to purely sit there and securely house your data. So if you do have a cyber breach where the machine that you have your emails on or you surf the web on is compromised, there's no particular data on that. They might lock that machine. If they lock that machine, you reformat that, it's inconvenient, but you haven't lost your data. What they'll try and do is spread laterally across the network, which is why 24/7 monitoring or being able to identify when you're being attacked is absolutely critical. Okay, there's so many different attack vectors. There's some of the ones here emerging. If I went through all the different attack vectors, I'd take up the entire day. It's impossible to stop an attack. Think of it from a physical pharmacy perspective. If somebody really wants to break into your store from a physical perspective, unless you go to a silly extreme, bars on all the windows, landmines, a tank out the front, someone's going to get in. They're going to get into your pharmacy. Cybersecurity is no different. If they really want to get in, they can get in, and people make mistakes. So you need to have a system in place to monitor your network so that when they get in, you can act quickly. We have a range of penetration testers that we work with. Their job is to go out there and try and break into systems. Where are the vulnerabilities? Where can we exploit this network? Where can we exploit this system to gain access to the data? They can get into any system with the right time, the amount of time, the right resources, the motivation. They can essentially get into any system. When talking to them, what differentiates a secure organisation from an insecure organisation is how quickly people respond to that threat. And interestingly, and not surprisingly in some ways, the most secure organisations, the hardest, and the ones that they would never be able to get any data from are the banks. The banks are investing ridiculous amounts of money in cybersecurity, and that's good to hear, because that's really important for all of us. But they've been able to breach the first layer of security from a banking system perspective, but within seconds, minutes, they're onto them and they're kicked out of the network. They've never been able to successfully compromise the banks. Well, not the ones I'm talking to anyway. And so that's encouraging, but it's 24/7 real-time monitoring. If you're not having somebody there constantly monitoring your network and your systems, then you're potentially vulnerable because of that wide attack vector. And lastly, seek out advice. If you're not sure, come and talk to somebody.